Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in this 2025 NHL Draft season, my number one prospect in the class has changed. Previously, James Hagens for years has been my number one prospect in this 2025 draft class, but we've seen a change recently with a lot more viewings right at the very top. Michael Misa of the Saginaw Spirit is now my number one. Today, we're going to be going through a full deep dive of Michael Misa's game, what has made him the number one prospect in the class for me, and why I think he is so special with scouting reports, highlights, and a lot more. So make sure you watch till the end for the full prospect analysis, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey prospect content just like this as we lead up to the draft this summer, presented by BetUS. Now, I talked about James Hagens being my number one in this class for a while, but Michael Misa was the original hyped prospect in this class for 2025, getting granted exceptional status in the OHL at 15 years old and immediately hitting the ground running as an OHLer. As you guys can see in his rookie OHL season, in 45 games, he had 22 goals, 34 assists, 56 points, an unbelievable stat line to start things out, and the future was looking bright. But I would say last season, it was a little bit more of the same. He was still playing well and still using his smarts that really had been the big thing for him in his career to his advantage, but I don't think he was overwhelmingly great. And we saw as well in the playoffs, him not really getting the biggest role with Saginaw either, as they would go on to win the Memorial Cup. He was somebody that was outside the top three for me at points and was somebody that I wasn't really sure what to make of him coming into this year. But to say that he's blown expectations away would be an understatement. In Michael Misa's case, he is really living up to that exceptional status. You can see so far in 51 games, he has 52 goals, 56 assists for 108 points. Almost all throughout this season, he has been a goal per game, an assist per game, more so than that, and even this far into the year, he is still having unbelievable production. You can see he's on pace for 66 goals and 137 points. Unbelievable. And it's worth keeping in mind that he's not even an old player for this draft. He was a February birth date. He turned 18 just a couple of days ago, yet this production is otherworldly compared to even any OHLer out there over the past few years. I would argue that Michael Misa is having one of the most impressive OHL seasons of all time. The fact that he is a draft eligible doing what he's doing is otherworldly. Really, the last time I remember any OHLer having a season as insane as Michael Misa is having is maybe Alex DeBrincat in 2017, where he got 65 goals, 62 assists, 127 points, unbelievable production. But he wasn't a draft eligible then. That was after his draft, the season afterwards, so he wasn't even in that draft eligible season like Michael Misa is. Yet for Misa in that draft year, he has more, on pace at least, for more goals, more assists, more points, a better point per game, which is just insane. Now, of course, the great Connor McDavid does have Misa beat, but he pretty much has every single player in history beat at this point. In McDavid's case, he has a 2.55 points per game in his draft year, which is just unbelievable. In Misa's case, it is below that at a 2.12, but honestly, I mean, nobody's going to be reaching the Connor McDavid levels. If you're even close, if you're in the same stratosphere, that is a legendary season. I would argue, though, in Misa's case, that the quality of teammates is a little bit different. In McDavid's case, he had DeBrincat and Strome, which is just unbelievable. In Misa's case, he's recently gotten Igor Chernyshov, but that's only been over the last 9 games. All throughout the last 40 games or so, the quality of teammates hasn't been on that same level. So maybe if he had a Strome and a DeBrincat, things would be different there. Now, I can wax poetic about Misa's production, just how unbelievable it is, just how much it is legendary status for a kid like that at his age. But the stats don't matter if we don't take a look at how he is playing, why he is getting these points, why he is so dominant. And the good news is that he's not just stat padding. It's not just points for the sake of points, these gimme power play goals and tap-ins, or whatever you might call it. What Misa is doing is 100% worthy of the production. What he's doing every single night really does lead to that success, and there are times where I'm surprised he doesn't have even more points. So let's get with some of the highlights here that I've clipped together, why I believe Michael Misa is the best prospect in this 2025 draft. That is subject to change, but as of right now, let's get into why he's number one. The first thing that you have to mention when it comes to Michael Misa is the IQ, the smarts that he plays with, and how much he is just such an adaptable player out there. It's truly incredible to watch just how well he anticipates the play and how much that feeds into his success. And this anticipation of play is why I think he's one of the best defensive forwards in this draft, and why that leads so much to his offense. He's somebody that's not afraid to go into the dirty areas to really support the play and support his D partner. You go and see here, he's behind the net and almost acting as a defenseman, getting that puck along the boards and rising it up to start the breakout. Speaking more about his defense, there's a reason why he's playing late in games in the OHL. There's a reason why he's playing top penalty kill minutes as well for the Saginaw Spirit. It's because he's reliable. It's because he makes plays that not many other players will. You have this Saginaw-Windsor game where Saginaw's up 5-3, 2 minutes left to go in the third period. Windsor has a full empty net out there. I love what Misa is able to do, though, as a support player here. He gets this stick down so effortlessly and is able to feed that up to his teammate up the wall, and eventually the puck gets out. A brilliant play here, though, on defense, and it's one of multiple in this game, in this whole season for him. Another situation just a few seconds later with the Windsor empty net. They're trying to load up into the offensive zone. You see Misa here right at the bottom, almost like a ninja in the dark. He's going to stealth around and then get that loose puck as it comes free, and then make the smart play here. I love how he shields the puck with his body completely, is able to get it up to his teammate right at the middle, and then even though this doesn't end up leading to an empty net, Chernishaw misses it. I love just how effective this play was to get that separation, get the puck out as cleanly as possible, and again, do it in the most effective way. I think in Misa's case, that's I think what separates him the most, is that so much of what he does is so effective, so easy. He makes the game easy for his entire team, his entire line. And that's why I think he is such a great support player, and honestly, such a great driver of play. But let's talk about that transition ability, though, and something that I think is a game-breaking skill for Misa, his speed as well as his quickness in his decision-making up the ice. It's something that, like Matthew Schaefer, is a supreme strength. And I think one of the big things that I was wrong about with Misa, especially in his whole prospect trajectory, has been the skating, the speed, and how much he's been able to improve that over the years. I think especially this season, him jumping into play, getting more and more involved, we have seen that. You have this play where there's a loose puck right in the middle, Misa gloves it from the middle and just is able to get it up effectively, and he just comes into the right moments, whether that's for a pass, whether that's for a shot. He uses his speed in the best ways possible, and I think it always just helps the play forward. And it leads me to an interesting point about his skating, and to me, it's one of the most underrated attributes in his game. I mean, a lot of the IQ talk around him is warranted, and it leads to comparables to a player like John Tavares, for example, but I think Michael Misa uses his speed much more than Tavares did in his entire career. Misa is a fantastic transition player, and a lot of it is because of his speed and his quick decision making. You have this play as he gets the puck over in his defensive zone, and just how quick he's able to rise up the ice and get the play going. Nothing comes of it because Christian Epperson has some weird moments sometimes, but the speed is on display. And when Misa does get the puck, there can be some magical things that happens. I don't think he's much of a dangler, but he can do it when he wants to, and getting through that pressure, I think, is one of the most interesting parts of his game. Physically, I think he's also pretty underrated, and he's somebody that uses that strength in the best ways. Simply to drive the net, to get into those crowded areas. Misa is not afraid to play physical, and that's, I think, something as well that helps his game. I could gush about the speed at which Misa plays the game so much, so consistently. I mean, it's always on display there, and I think one of the most interesting parts of this play as well, Misa using that craftiness that he can have on display as well. I mean, getting that puck under the stick of the defender, reaching it around to get that space to Epperson. It's an underrated play, but an effective one. But when Misa sees a loose puck or a loose play, he is lights out, blistering up the ice and just getting through pressure so effectively, like a hot knife through butter. It is so fun to watch. I think in Misa's case, the way he's able to establish possession in the offensive zone is such a critical trait of his transition play, especially as a center. That balance and effectiveness and that ease at which he's going through pressure will really aid him in the NHL especially. But with Misa, it's not all speed all the time. He's not relying on that, especially in Misa's case, that craftiness. You can see it here, how he just makes a simple back pass to Epperson, and that's able to feed the play, gets a quick shot off there. I love, though, with Misa, it's not just one-dimensional transition ability. He's not just trying to attack you and trying to dangle you out like a player like a Beckett Seneca, for example. In Misa's case, there's so many different tools to his toolbox, and that creativity is something that I think we've seen a lot more this season. But I wanted to show you guys a shift that really shows what Misa is capable of, how he can just do so many different things on the ice. You have this puck loose in the neutral zone, and as Windsor tries to get after it, Misa comes with the pressure, forces the Windsor player to go against heavy Saginaw pressure, and I think that's pretty critical as well. The puck gets turned over, Saginaw gets it back, and then you have Misa getting the puck back in the neutral zone and then rising it up the ice effectively, getting it to his teammates, and of course there would later be a shot attempt coming from that. But then you have this next play. After the shot is created, the save is made, it's loose right there for Windsor. It's a very winnable puck there. Some offensive players, though, would back down from it, already having the offensive opportunity and not really putting in the effort to get it back. But look what Misa does here. As that puck is loose, he comes in against two different Windsor players, gets the puck and frees it completely for another amazing shot attempt. It didn't end up leading to a goal, but that physicality and that ability to escape pressure and create space is something that Saginaw has been using to their benefit all year. And this power play shift that would later lead to an assist also shows how special Misa could be in the offensive zone as the puck gets rushed in. Here he comes right here, looking to make a pass. He's able to find Igor Chernyshov right at the bottom for a perfect seam, and he, of course, getting involved in the play, using his speed and using his quick decision-making, quick passing all over the ice. He ends up going in front of the net. There's nothing quite there, but he comes back out to the slot, and look at that perfect pass, perfect shot right there, and is able to lead to some havoc and eventually the goal. I think in Misa's case, just all over the ice, in every position, he was there making the right plays. And I talked about it before, but I want to also touch on the physicality of Michael Misa's game, because it's not abundant. He's not going to be making big hits or anything, but he's really good at getting through pressure, getting that space that he needs to make things work. You have this play, and later, of course, a goal for Michael Misa. It's 3-2 Saginaw. Pressure here in the offensive zone for the Spirit. The cycle is working, but I love how Michael Misa just comes below the defenseman here, and look how he's just able to swoop in on the play. They're battling here, and the puck gets loose, and he's just able to get the stick in. This wasn't really a tap-in goal by any means. This was one that he needed to work for. This replay really shows how tough it was getting around that physical opposition, just getting that stick in the lane enough to tap in the goal there. It was a tap-in goal, sure, but he really did have to work for it. I mean, it was a great pass as well, but getting past that physical opposition and making it seem almost to the defenseman like he was winning that battle, even though Misa didn't have that cut inside, he was still able to get that stick in enough to make that goal happen. And I just love how, even though he didn't obviously win that battle 110%, he did just enough to, of course, get that goal in the end and, of course, win the situation. And there was a couple good physical plays here and there. You had this play along the boards here where Misa comes right in and gets a pretty good hit. But again, he's not going to be hunting for big hits, hunting for headshots. That's not the type of player he is. But if he does need to bring some physicality to end up working on a play, getting the puck back, he will use it. He's not afraid to use it, and I think he's happy to use it as well. As long as he gets the puck back and keeps possession in the right areas, he's willing to do whatever it takes, and that's what I love about him. But now we go into one of my favorite plays from this game, where Michael Misa was going against eLiaminator, Washington Capitals prospect, an absolute beast of a man, 6'5", I think like 215 pounds. Absolutely incredible. The physicality here was on point, and the defensive play as well. As the puck is loose, of course, you can see Protas is a mammoth, and even though Misa's pretty big, I think he's like 6'1", he's not on Protas's level. You can see how the puck is loose. Protas is trying to get away from him, trying to get that space. Misa just does not let him. He puts up the physicality, puts up a stick lift, does whatever he can possible, and gets that puck back, and eventually gets it back to Parekh. I mean, the fact that Misa was going against Protas one-on-one physically and winning that battle shows what he's capable of. But now you can start to get an understanding of why I've grown to love Michael Misa so much, why I think he's gotten better and better in every single game I've watched him. And this is just the game that I clipped from him. There were so many other moments throughout other games that I just absolutely loved in Misa's case. He's somebody that just brings so much overall that you just can't help but love the guy. And before earlier on in the season, comparing him to a player like a Jonathan Toews, for example, I think Misa is much more than that. Toews was obviously an elite player, especially defensively, but I think Misa has potential on defense, but I think he has massive potential offensively that, even with the points, I don't think we're giving him enough credit. I think this is somebody that can be a franchise #1 center in so many ways, and the fact that he is getting the center experience and looking pretty great at it too, I think it's fantastic. He has played wing before, but I think he's a very natural centerman with the smarts that he provides, how good his anticipation is, how good he is defensively, and how much better he's getting at faceoffs as well. I think it would be a shame to not play him up the middle. It's just kind of unbelievable how much Misa has improved year over year. I obviously liked him last year. He was still somebody that was among the top 10 prospects for me coming in, but I didn't expect this type of performance from him, this type of just dominance. And it's great to see, because the player that Misa can be and the player he is absolutely special. One of the big things that I think is a big trait for him going forward, and the reason why I think he will go high in this class, is just how much he elevates everybody he plays with. You have Igor Chernyshov, San Jose Sharks prospect, a great pick at 33rd overall. I absolutely love him. He is a fantastic fit with Misa. But I think in Chernyshov's case, he would be nowhere near the point production he's at without a player like Misa beside him. You look at it in 9 games, 12 goals, 15 assists, 27 points, silly numbers. It's insane. But I think Misa is so good at elevating his teammates, creating space for them, rising up in transition and doing all the dirty, hard things that need to happen for goals to be scored. And I think in that case, especially when you look at the teammates he has in Chernyshov, he has really benefited from that type of presence. And to me, there's not really a stylistic comparison in the NHL that Misa really fits with. I think the player that he reminds me the most is actually Lachlan Hall from last year's draft. But I think in Misa's case, he's a little bit more physical, and I think has bigger physical traits and uses them a little bit more than Celebrini did. But obviously, it's up to debate whether he'll be a better player than Celebrini. But I think those two players are around the same tier for me. That's what's really been eye-opening about these two guys, especially, is just how much they've been able to elevate the players around him. In Celebrini's case, he's doing that in the NHL already, and I think in Misa's case, he could do that in the NHL as soon as next year. I've seen this growing consensus that there's not really an NHL-ready player in this draft, and I would, for the most part, agree if you aren't talking about Misa. I think in Schaefer's case, with the injury and how young he is, I would give him definitely another OHL season. In James Hagens' case, I think growing his physical body, getting more strength will really benefit him, so I think another season in the NCAA could really help him. But in Michael Misa's case, I don't think he has anything left to learn in the OHL. He is by far the best player there, by far the best player in the CHL already, and I just don't think he needs any more development time. He's already almost a perfect player for the age group, and I mean, he could try to get better production, but it would be insane to even, because the consistent success we've seen this year is almost unprecedented. And talking about those other players and the comparisons, I might make a video later on where I compare a player like Misa and Hagens against each other as the two best centermen in this draft class. But I think a reason why Misa has been kind of cutting ahead of Hagens for me has just been that projectability, that ease at which he plays the game. In a player like Hagens' case, I love the skill set and the dynamic play he can provide. But I think in Misa's case, he's much more projectable to the pace of the NHL, the hardness that you're going to be playing against those big competition, the big minutes you're going to be playing. In Misa's case, he can go all over the ice. He can play in every situation for you and succeed at it. And that's, to me, why he is maybe the most valuable prospect in this class. The reason that he can be a first-line center and play power play, play penalty kill, be your offensive guy, be your guy you could play with when the other team has an empty net late in the game. He can just fill so many different roles for you, and that's why I'm just so excited about it. I mean, I wouldn't have blamed him if he was scoring 108 points in 51 OHL games and he was sacrificing a little bit of defense here and there to get some goals in the end. But he doesn't do that. He uses his defensive game even more when he's scoring, because that's what brings him his success. And I look at a team like a Chicago or a team like San Jose that could really use that overall game, that two-way presence. I think in Misa's case, he could absolutely bring that. San Jose with Celebrini already does, but I look at especially a team like Chicago with Bedard as that offensive sniper in the future. A player like Misa, especially as a second-line center, would be more than perfect. That would be honestly disrespectful to him, because I think he can be one of the best centermen and a top 10 one in the NHL. Now, if we're looking at problems here and there, I will say I think one of the biggest things that I noticed, at least throughout this season, is that the face-off ability sometimes can be a little bit hit or miss. And as a centerman, especially this season, I'm not really all that surprised. He's an 18-year-old in the OHL, so there's going to be bigger guys, bigger competition against him. That will be something I think to definitely improve on going forward. But I think that's really the only big weakness I would say in Misa's game, at least from what I've watched. Other than that, I don't really see many things that will keep him back from really filling out and reaching his potential at the NHL level. I maybe want to see more consistency with the speed. That's maybe something that I think we can see more of, but the fact that he's already using it so much in transition and when he needs to, I think is a fine thing to do. I mean, in Misa's case, it's almost like he perfectly plans when to use his speed and when to use that energy, and that's why I think he will be such a successful NHLer. That brain and that thinking ahead, that just complexity that he's always playing with is awesome to watch. And again, it is no slight to a player like James Hagens or a Matthew Schaefer. I love both of those guys as well. Schaefer especially, I want to see, I would say especially for him, I want to see him get back healthy this year and then make a determination. I see a lot of people putting him number one, especially after they didn't have him at number one at like November and December, which I find weird because Schaefer hasn't played since then. So I don't really know why you put him at number one besides other people putting him at number one. But if Schaefer does come back and makes it a competition, I'd be really interested to see how this number one slot fills out, because I think right now it's between Schaefer and Misa. It will obviously depend which teams prefer a centerman or a defenseman, but I think right now it's coming down between those guys. And I think it's going to be an exciting race at first overall, because whether it's Misa, Hagens, or Schaefer, there's really no determination either way. Schaefer is getting the most momentum, but again, it will have to really depend on what happens going forward, what happens in the second half. So a lot of things still need to happen here, but in Misa's case, I think he's my number one. He's my best prospect in the 2025 draft. and we'll see how that progresses down the line. Now, before we go, let's talk about today's sponsor, BetUS, the place to make your hockey picks throughout this season, and of course on the NHL Draft too. And it's interesting for the odds for first overall. We were just talking about it. You have James Hagens versus the field. Right now, the field with players like Schaefer and Misa have the advantage at -175, while James Hagens is at +130. I would tend to agree with that personally. But if you want to make other picks on the Four Nations tournament game, as of course with Canada, US in the final, also the Four Nations MVP, as well as different Stanley Cup matchups, the Stanley Cup winner, different NHL games, BetUS is the place to do so. Just use code YouTube150 and you'll get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next deposits right after that. But that is my breakdown of Michael Misa and why he has become my #1 prospect in this 2025 NHL Draft. And I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Comment down below your thoughts on this first overall race, who you have as the #1 for you, Schaefer, Misa, Hagens, or Martone maybe. Let me know your thoughts down below on that. And of course, Michael Misa's game as well. Of course, share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all my hockey prospects talk right in one playlist there for you to binge. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic hockey day, and goodbye.